Jak X Combat Racing is in the era of Edge when mascots were edgified beyond what they originally were. I mean, Jak was a silent protagonist with a happy-go-lucky attitude, and I mean, look at him now. I love the original Jak games, and was fine with the second one. Very different characters, but this is a Naughty Dog game, mind you. Naughty Dog before they became the Naughty Dog that everyone knows now. But this is a kart combat game that has a pretty split mix of racing and combat, unlike any other kart game, which falls more on one of the other sides. It's in the Jak universe, I believe, right after the third game, and tries to be the edgiest hot topic hit around. It has a lot of components to it, which sometimes makes it a bit confusing, a bit hectic, and while familiar enough with the Jak universe and its themes, this game is truly chaotic. The graphics are, well, a bit too much for its own good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good. It looks like a Jak game, but there's so much going on the screen that the graphics get in the way more than not, and you lose track of the track, you lose track of the opponents. Like, look at this. I can't see anything. The guide lights get lost, the obstacles are hard to see, but it is manageable where you go blind for a few seconds, but you're able to recover. But it is very annoying. That said, this does look like it could be an early PS3 game if the poly count was just a bit higher. There are tons of detail here, from the world, to the characters, to the carts, to the mechanics. They crammed as much as they could into it, and for the most part, it works well. I mean, it looks good. Widescreen support is great, and the cutscenes are just gorgeous for its time. Like, Naughty Dog always put out a great looking game. And let me just tell you, the lighting in this game is great. Like I said, this could be an early PS3 game if you gave it a little more higher resolution. I was impressed. For a kart game, they went all out, which might be a bit of a pity, because that can't be said for the weapons. They're just kind of there. The icons representing the different power-ups are so generic, and like any kind of character or in world building, that they feel disconnected from the Jak universe. An electric orb, machine gun, fire, all that stuff, they're represented here, but it's generic as generic can get. They don't feel like they came from this universe, this technology. They just feel like assets to put into a game that wasn't Jak 4. Which is sad because this game plays heavily on the combat, so if the combat was more interesting, it would have been an even better game. This is a bit tricky because it's a racing game and combat game pretty much like down the middle. You have to win races, but a lot of it you have to dodge, counterattack, and attack to win. The racing is fun though. The controls are very PS2 era, so no trigger buttons for gas, face buttons only with jump and weapons on the shoulders and triggers, which that was the hardest part to get used to. I do like the customizations you get for the carts, and there's a bunch of secrets you can unlock, so there is a lot to do in this game. The weapons are very generic, like I said, to the point where they're just there. I mean, there are other kart games that have much better variety and characters to their power-up. It seems like the weapon system was an afterthought on this, which is insane for the amount of combat that is baked into this title. That said, the levels are very unique, very Jak, and I believe that's because they use assets from Jak 3, which is fine, it's the world they live in. However, with all the things to do in the race and the way they want you to play the game, there are a lot of mechanics, like, it doesn't know what it wants to be. You have offensive and defensive mechanics, you have a jump mechanic, and boost power-ups, and then you can upgrade your car for better performance and armor, but it all gets, I wouldn't say confusing, but convoluted. Like, you have to shoot the guy in front of you, but also protect yourself from behind. You have armor that falls off, and there looks to be turrets on the racing course that also fire on you, so there's a lot to process here. I ended up getting blown up a lot, but also blowing up opponents a lot, and while it was a bit frustrating in the beginning, I found my flow for it, but the combat, I mean, I just wasn't feeling it. If you like generic gut rock or nu metal, this is the game for you. The soundtrack isn't bad, but it's 100% forgettable. The sound effects are great, the voice acting is great, it's top-notch Naughty Dog, and if you like the Jak games and the humor around those Jak games, you'll love the story bits as well. That said, the music and sound effects are competent, above average, but nothing to be wowed over. The voice acting, however, top-notch. Let's talk about the pros and cons. The story is actually interesting. Jak games have always had pretty interesting stories, and this is no exception. The racing is competent, and the controls are good enough for this type of game. The graphics look really good for a PS2 game, and I think the detail, widescreen support, and lighting effects helped a lot here. It turns it into a mostly modern title, or at least modern looking title. And the mechanics are great at keeping you engaged to upgrade your car and get new cars, and while frustrating, the races are a bit addicting and make you want to get better at them. But in terms of cons, there are a few. Like, it's very cluttered. At times you just have no idea where to go on a closed circuit, which is wild to me. The weapons are unimaginative, and for a game that splits racing and combat like 50-50 here, I'd expect more. And it's kind of a title we didn't need. Like, what's the point of this? I know they had racing in Jak 3 and driving in Jak 2, but this felt like a cash grab, I'm just saying. Now, Naughty Dog has their forte into other kart games, see Crash Bandicoot. But this one, as it seems with every Jak sequel, this was a lot darker, a lot harder. It was interesting playing it, and the story was actually interesting, but again, this really didn't need to exist, and the fact that the combat is kind of generic and a bit frustrating supports that idea that maybe it was a cash grab. And that's why on this list, it's going below Super IndyCart. It's better in terms of everything else when going up against Rally 2011, but that's because Jak X has so much built into it. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot in this game. You get your bang for your buck, but the combat is just I mean, you can't have especially with a Jak game, a Jak racing game, a Jak racing combat game, right? In the era of underground street racing with JDMs, along with a sprinkle of American and European hot hatches and tuner cars, Juiced is a drop in a very large bucket during this time. However, on the handheld, other than the Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance, the on-the-go market of underground street racing was a little bit more spicy. Considered a sequel to the 2005 Juice console game, this pint-sized package has multiple modes, customizations, and looks pretty good for the PSP. And the late 90s, early 2000s soundtrack, which I cannot play on here, but for this list, you'll either love it or hate it. So this game, you have to remember, this is a PSP, right? It's like a PS1 with some PS2 in there. Maybe a little PS2, I don't remember. It's more like a PS1 thing. That said, this doesn't look that bad. I haven't played the original Juice, but just from this cutscene, I can tell you they probably used a lot of the PS2 assets and scaled them down. I'm fine with that. I mean, this is meant to be on the go, right? And as a handheld game, this is pretty good looking. I mean, you live or die by those car models, and you can tell what everything is. The car mods are detailed enough that you can tell when the wheels are BBS or Koenig. You can see the body kit modifications. There's a lot here in terms of graphical power. However, the parts where it shows the most that this is a very old handheld, there is no style to this game. Like, it's flat, it's uninspired, it's empty, and it has no soul. Like, it looks fine. It looks better than a lot of other handheld racing games, but if you wanted to show off a great looking racing game for the PSP, this wouldn't be it. That said, if you grew up in the era of DOS racing and PS1 racing games, there's a bit of nostalgia to this, especially the first Need for Speed, which if you want to see my thoughts on that, watch this video here. But that said, a lot of the old PS1 Need for Speed games looked a lot better than this title, like a lot better. So as I said, this is a handheld game, and they gave you a lot, I mean a lot of content for this game. You race for pinks, you upgrade your car, you pick a goddamn phone, Sony Ericsson, thank you. You call people, you race, you spectate, you bet, you upgrade, you have rep. There is a lot here. This is a console-filled game on a handheld, and I started getting immersed in it, actually. I will say the handling is a bit funky, and I believe that's because of the analog stick not being a real analog stick on the PSP. But the car has a latency or a dead zone to it, so when you push that stick, the car doesn't move or it jerks too fast when you hit left or right. You kind of have to play it to understand what I mean. Although the developers seem to know it because while it doesn't feel great, your car isn't squirrely, and what you think might turn into a crash autocorrects itself pretty fast. Now, the braking, the power slide mechanics are not great. Mind you, I was driving in a front-wheeled car, so kind of understand. But this is not a sim game, this is an arcade game with a bunch of mechanics tackled onto it. I did get used to the racing, mind you. It never felt great though. But that said, it worked, and it worked well enough. I feel this is a game that the cars get better as you upgrade your ride, as you get better cars, which is always a double-edged sword. How do you make the cars feel good without being as good as a top-of-the-line ride? I don't think they hit that here, though. So the sound effects are okay to good. The cars sound great, the crashes are fine, and personally the music is chef's kiss, at least for me. You may notice a lot of Let's Plays or long plays showing off the game in silence, and that's because we have a 100% licensed soundtrack, but that just caters to this game like you need that. But if you didn't grow up with this music, you might hate the soundtrack. But again, as a handheld title, the sounds are just fine. The cars aren't booming, there's no wind sound, no ambient noises. It's comparable to the original Need for Speed DOS game, which I don't know the exact date, but I can tell you that was a very long time ago compared to when this game came out. Let's talk about the pros and cons, and I have to say, it's a very competent miniaturized console version. I like all the meat inside, all the things you can do. It feels premium because of it. It feels like a console game shrunk down, and since it's an arcadey racing game, it's inherently built for the handhelds, at least the gameplay is. I love the licensed cars. I love that you can upgrade them and that they have a lot of upgrades available. You can really put your own personality into these rides. The story, while not peak Need for Speed cheese, is pretty early 2000s perfection. Like, it's generic, but you can tell they at least tried something here. While the controls could be a bit better, it's competent enough that I wasn't frustrated with them. However, the game is a little uninspired. It technically works, but that's really about it. Like, it has an old PC game look to it when it probably wasn't going for that at the time. Everything is just mid to good with this title. Like, if you didn't play it, you're not missing out, and there's not much I could say to you to make you want to play it, right? The controls are probably the biggest negative of this game, though. The dead zone or latency thing is just too jarring to ever not think about it, and the braking and hand braking aren't the greatest either, which kind of knocks it down a few. Juice Eliminator. You know, I have this game on PC and have never touched it. I actually started this series because I wanted to force myself to play all these racing games I wanted to try out. And it's funny that the handheld version is the first one I tried. And I like it. I enjoyed it. Will I play this again? If the console ports are better, probably not. But if I was in 2006, had a PSP, and this was the only game I had, I would thoroughly enjoy it. So where does this live on the chart? I feel we're at a line right now, and it's between these guys. Like Rad Racer, Super IndyCar, kind of on the good line, right? Everything under that is okay, minus, we'll say, Fake Racing and down. That's just bad. And I don't think this game deserves to be on the good side, but it's not bad. So let's put it above Rally 2011 and above Jak X, because at least this game knows what it is. I enjoyed my time with it as, oh wow, look at this old PSP title, but I think that's all it's going to be. Art of Rally is a semi-top-down arcade rally racer with a very stylized, minimal look. They utilize car lookalikes instead of licensed vehicles, but you know what they are. It has a great soundtrack, and while the design is minimal, it's packed with visual delights and a great handling system that borderline sim versus arcade. While you don't race with others on the track, you do race against the time and other racers, but this title is very forgiving depending on what difficulty you set it to. This is a very unique game that is unlike a lot of other titles in this genre. In fact, I've never seen a rally racer look like this, and in a world where we usually get ultra-realistic rally racers, this is a welcome addition to the genre. The cars and the world look like they were made out of clay or paper, but that's not a down for the look. The cars look great and they have a very 80s vibe to them. Honestly, it all looks great. The low poly cars with the simplistic iconography and livery on them look like one of those Bauhaus or mid-century posters designs you see on Etsy all the time. It also keeps the UI to a minimal. It almost looks like the developers used a based element when creating the map or rev counter, but the way this game is played, it's enough, and it's not really what you're looking at most of the time anyway. Depending on what kind of display you're playing on, however, looking at the far left or right or bottom does distract you from this track. But they're not really needed to play the game. They're a secondary, a companion. That said, I do wish the UI was designed a little more driver focused in a way that wouldn't distract you, but also a quick glance won't make you miss a turn. And while the game doesn't overly portray itself as a retro-style rally racer, you are racing through history, it seems, starting in the late 60s all the way to the 90s. Some screens have this filter over them that make it look washed out or vintage, but when you're in the race, it doesn't present that to you. There is a video that plays of the cars racing, and it doesn't feel very 70s or 80s. It's an odd visual design because it's not done throughout the game, but it's not distracting anyway, so I give it a pass. So this is where, as Jeff Gerstmann would say, comes the science, because I'm not a huge fan of rally games. I want to be, I like the idea of rally games, but I'm more of an arcade, semi-sim racer fan. This really was pulled out of the Japanese import rally racers of the PS1s, because this starts out with a strange statue talking to you in your car and then asks you for your blood type. It starts out like a Katamari game, to be honest, and I was expecting some weird shit, but it never happened. This game was a bit hard and frustrating for me personally. However, I know when controllers are bad or when it's just me, and it was me this time, at least. 100%. The controls are tight. They're arcadey, a bit slidey, but also precise enough where I never felt the game was making me lose control. You have to learn to brake, speed up, shift, and all that jazz. A few times I hit turns or jumps just right and it felt really good, like I accomplished something. The game makes you want to learn how to play, learn how to control the car, and because there's no overly designed UI or rear view or in-cockpit view, it's not that hard to see what's coming ahead of you, sometimes. I understand some people want a passenger giving you turns, and at times, some turns come up out of nowhere, but overall, the point of view of the camera makes it so it's easy to see what's ahead of you. Like I said, most of the time. But it's a very simple game. You pick a car, you pick a livery, you pick your difficulty, and you go. There are some challenges, stuff to unlock, in a free roam you can practice and get collectibles in, but overall, this is a chill game with some fast-paced and precise, and I underline precise, racing elements to it. But going back to the arcade sim racing style built into this game, you really need to baby the triggers. If you come out of a crash or corner too fast, you'll redline. Like, you can't just go into a turn, hit the brake, and then go. The cars have weight to them, and you have to account for that. I would say if you have a wheel and pedal setup, that might help even more with this title, which is a bit of a shock considering the look of this game. So you have to tighten your expectations on what this game is. It's not a puzzle racer, it's not really an arcade racer, but it's obviously not a sim racer. It's a sim arcade racer, but not like Forza Horizon. Like I said, this game is very unique. The soundtrack is great. Synth 80s electric pop, along with the car sounds, are top notch. The game's look can be deceptive because the audio is very realistic, especially with the crowd when you get close to them and when the car jumps or redlines with the pop 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 sound of the exhaust. The game just sounds great overall, honestly. So let's get into the pros and cons, starting with the pros. First of all, I love the design of this game. It's very stylized, but not in a way that's distracting or a detriment to the gameplay. It's retro, but not. The car handling is great. It's a perfect balance of arcade and sim rally racing that a pro could probably pick up and go, and a novice like myself can do relatively well, but learn the controls over time and really get good at it. It's a good pick up and go kind of game with a few slowdowns in the menus, but I can see this being a great Steam Deck game. In terms of the cons, I wish there was racing lines for beginners. It would be great to learn how the game wants you to handle turns, slowing down, and jumps. A lot of the modern, even older racing sims and arcade sim racers do this, and it's nice when you're first starting out. At the end of every race, you get to a menu that goes over your stats and what you have unlocked. It takes a bit longer than I would like to get through all of that, and you can't skip those screens. But that is a very small complaint. While the graphics are good looking, it's a little too simple. Maybe it's the over-the-top perspective, or maybe it's the lack of macro details, but the turns, the jumps, the crossing the finish lines never feel epic or exciting. It feels good, but I wish there was a little more. I am not great at rally racing games, but I do enjoy them. This was no exception. While highly artistic, the game is grounded in reality. It was a fun rally racer that was frustrating at times because I needed to learn the controls. When I did, it got better. It's not something I would play sitting on the couch or at my desk that much, but I would love to have this on a portable system. This would have been a great PS Vita or 3DS game, but also this would be tons of fun on the Steam Deck. But where would this live on the list? I think it's better than Jak X. Is it better than Super IndyCart? That's a hard one. I had more fun with Super IndyCart, and the handling is pretty good. Here's the difference between Super IndyCart and Art of Rally. Art of Rally is missing the excitement, the thrill of rally racing, because it's so simplified and so pulled back. I get that's what they were going for, and I'm into it. Any variety and a genre of racing game is a welcome in my book, but Super IndyCarts had that stylization as well, but it keeps that excitement, that thrill that not even Jak X could match. So I think we have our new number 8, The Art of Rally. Great game, and I think we're going to play this more on handhelds because it seems to be built for handhelds, a pick up and go rally racer that we don't really have much of these days. Okay, so an extremely mediocre quad racing game on the Game Boy Advance. It tries some very advanced 3D here via the voxel engine, but man do they fail. There's no story to this. You just have race challenges, which I believe challenges are pretty much just races. Now, I believe this was $20 when it came out, so even new, you kind of knew what this was. The game also doesn't have a save feature, so no saving for scores, no saving between tracks. You go and keep playing until you turn the machine off. And if the fact that this was cancelled for the European release doesn't raise any red flags for you, my thoughts on this game will. So graphics. They're actually pretty insane for a value game on the GBA. Now, I'm not saying it looks great, I'm saying they try to go above and beyond what they should have done, and when we get to it, the gameplay pays for it in full. This could have very easily have been a top-down or side-scrolling racer, or even on a set track, because there's really no track here, but they decided to go open world. Fully 3D with terrains and obstacles. Now, this cost the game to be about 5 to 10 frames at any given time, but I can tell what everything is here, so that's kind of good. That said, thinking 5 to 10 frames is okay for a racing game is pretty wild. However, they didn't even bother giving an outline for the map in the track selection. Like, look at this map. There are giant caverns, cactuses and bushes. This is just a wild looking game because it's both impressive and just sad at the same time. So remember all those things I said about the graphics? Well, I'm going to be blunt here. This game is just uncontrollable. It has both under and oversteering at the same time, oddly enough. The game feels like it wants to be played with an analog stick so badly, but the GBA doesn't have an analog stick, obviously. It has a D-pad. And while you can use the face buttons for gas, you can also use the up arrow for gas. So weirdly enough, this game is like a one-handed accessible game, which is nice, I guess. The shoulder buttons let you look left or right, but oh god. What is even going on here? Like, why is this a thing? Why did they think this was a good idea to put into this? Like, the controls are just as random as the elements in the world. So I couldn't test any of the other tracks because it crashed, but what I understand here is that this is it. This is the stage. The checkpoints just move, so it's an open world of sorts, and that's why I guess the AI is not following the dirt path. I mean, in lap 2, I decided just to follow the arrows, and you can tell even the AI couldn't control their quads because you see them in the distance just circling for their life to get to that checkpoint. And let's not forget the unforgivable sin of putting crap all over the track and not letting you break or run through the bush or cactus. Okay, a cactus I kind of understand, but a bush? You know, if this thing flips on you, you're crushed. Like, it's lights out, right? These are heavy machines, so the fact that it can't go through this, that's just bad design. No joke, Motor Rotor had better controls than this. Yes, the control scheme is bad in Motor Rotor, but it's not fundamentally broken like this game. I'm just gonna say the music and sound effects are fine for a $20 game. Not as good as the graphics, but far better than the gameplay. So the pros of this game are definitely the graphics and probably the quick pickup and play of this title. The music, while very limited, isn't the worst thing, and pretty catchy in the early 2000s punk rock, skater rock kind of way, I guess. Again, you might not like that. I like that it's kind of open world. I mean, that's pretty neat. Oh baby. Cons. Oh baby, here we go. These graphics kill the frame rate, and this game needs those frames, man. The course, the world, is just not meant for a screen this size. There is no real story or push to keep you playing, and makes this game very generic. And without a save feature, this is no better than one of those Tiger handheld games where I guess this is meant to be played when you're bored or waiting. I mean, a lot of games have save states built in, and even at $20, that seems so odd that this doesn't. Like, did they just not know how to do that? I mean, there's not much to say about this title. It's not even worth your time unless you want to see what not to do on an open world 3D game for the Game Boy Advance. So, where does this live on a chart? I mean, I didn't think it would happen, but we have our first new worst game on the list here. Congratulations, Motor Rotor, you're not the worst. I mean, this game is borderline unplayable to what I would imagine most people would consider unplayable. Imagine if a game like this was released on your iPhone today. Imagine if EA released a Need for Speed with this much issues. Well, maybe you don't have to imagine, but you get what I'm saying. It would be pulled within an hour from the App Store. So no hate towards the developer. I mean, well, maybe a little, but yeah, I don't know the circumstances. I don't know if this was rushed, a prototype that got out. Who knows? But man, it's going to be hard to beat this one. So yeah, that is today's episode. Join me again, I don't know, maybe like a half a year? Maybe not. We'll try to do this again for like at least in another month to release another episode, because we got a lot of racing games to go through. I'm kind of picking this back up again. I'm getting hyped about some racing games because there's not really any good ones that came out recently. So I want to go back on that backlog. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments what you want to see. I probably have it. If not, I will probably figure it out and try to get it. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.